what she said. Jill and I are so... Jill and I are so excited. Jill.
Kerry, Jill is not here.
What?
Jill's not here. We got this, we can do this.
So, funny story. I'm gonna need you to just excuse me for, I'll be right back.
What's up, Rossow? I'm trying to get ready here. What do you need? Show's in an hour. I don't have much time.
It's now. It's now. You're late.
No. It's 6 o'clock. Oh. I'll be there in 10 minutes. I still need to shave my mustache. Give me 10 minutes. Do not start the show without me.
Absolutely not. I will totally hold the show for you. Hurry. I will not start without you. I promise.
10 minutes. On my way.
So, what do you guys think? Should we wait for her? We're so not waiting. Let's try that again. Welcome to That's What She Said. Thank you to our presenting sponsor, Christie Clinic, and thank you for being here tonight. I know that we are all so busy and overstimulated. That word overstimulated? That's not where I was going with that. That word overstimulated always reminds me of when I was in labor and delivery. I was bound and determined that I would outsmart labor pains. Smart idea. I read every book, article, and blog I could about pain management. I read things like, light a candle, play some soft music, maybe bring in a little massage therapy. I even read that if you sucked on Jolly Ranchers, it could help a sister out. So I guess the whole idea is that if you overwhelm your senses, that your body might just get distracted from that Mack truck tearing through your hoo-ha. Yeah, it could totally work. I'm ready to try it. I'll try anything. So there I was, with my Jolly Ranchers, and there I was, just bouncing on a birthing ball. Naked. Woo! I got this. I am bouncing. I am sucking. I am bouncing. Woo! I am bouncing. I am sucking. I am bouncing. Woo! Okay, well, you might be surprised to know that despite my excellent bouncing and sucking, those pesky labor pains still painful. Okay, so I'm no quitter. Time to add in some more sensory input. Let's throw in some sniffing. That'll work. Here we go. Come on, we're back at it. Here we go. I am bouncing, I am sucking, I am sniffing. I am bouncing, I am sucking, I am sniffing. Woo! Oh, well, still hurting, still really painful. Oh my goodness, okay. Time to bring in my husband. Time for him to do a little massage therapy. Yeah, he's standing behind me, but I don't know why he looked so frightened. Just get on in there. Come on, we got this, babe. Come on, ready? We can do this. I am bouncing, I am sucking, I am bouncing, I am sucking, I am sniffing. Oh, okay, keep rubbing, we got this. I'm bouncing, I am sucking, I am sniffing. Oh, yeah, no, shocking, none of that was working. Oh. And right then, that panic moment arrived, that moment when everything, I mean everything, was out of my control. Do you guys remember that scene from Bridesmaids where apparently that's a yes, where she is walking across the street in her wedding gown and she's got to take a little pit stop and then like, that was me. Oh, it's happening. Oh. I'm going to give you the gift of stopping right there. Yeah, you're welcome. But the point of that story is that I think life is like that. It can be overwhelming and amazing and messy and often out of our control. Sometimes we just need to tell our stories, and sometimes we just need to be heard. And speaking of being heard, one of you is going to join us up here tonight. You've been warned, but more on that later. Right now, I am anxious for you to meet our speakers. They will make you belly laugh, ugly cry, and everything in between. Because that's life, right? 1 minute, I'm laughing, and the next minute, the next minute, I am bouncing, I am sucking, I am sniffing. Sorry, you had to see that. I'm so sorry. Okay, join me in welcoming your 2015 That's What She Said speakers.
Good evening. Three weeks ago this week, I lost my sweet husband, Joe, after his brave 21-month battle with leukemia. Joe and I were college sweethearts. We moved to Champaign-Urbana in 1987 to go to grad school at the University of Illinois, thinking we'd eventually move back to our native New England. We never made it. We were married 26 years, and I can honestly say they were all pretty damn happy. We were a perfect match of kindred souls, a great team, tall and short, quiet and loud, faster and fast. We had common interests, shared goals, different strengths, unconditional love. But Joe's untimely passing meant living the rest of my life without him. How was I going to manage the grief that engulfed me, ambushing me constantly, like when I would call his cell phone number out of habit? Grief that pierced my heart so deeply, I had to get a pacemaker to fix it. As a society, we don't like to talk about grief. It's just easier to avoid that subject altogether. I mean, who wants to tackle that 5-ton elephant in the room? Well, tonight, I am going to talk about grief and tell you, maybe even convince you, that grief can be a good thing. Grief has taught me that tears are good. When we cry, we purge our bodies of toxic chemicals. Really, this is true. It is. I read it in a book that Dr. Joyce Brothers wrote after her husband died. If we don't cry, the bad stuff does not have a way to get out of our bodies. Thank you, grief. Grief taught me to face fire. I knew that joining the grief support group offered by Carl's hospice program would be brutally hard, and it was. Each class was like taking a fire hose to the face. Becoming a student of grief, I learned there's no free pass on grieving. I just had to do it. But by actively choosing to grieve, I was exercising some control over an overwhelming situation. Thank you, grief. Grief has helped me connect more deeply to my running. Now, running was a huge part of my life with Joe and remains a huge part of my ongoing recovery. I run to connect with Joe's spirit. On an early morning run in the dark, with a sky full of stars and a full moon still visible overhead, I absolutely feel his presence, and I'm uplifted by it. Before he died, Joe asked me to enter specific races and to run in places that he wouldn't get to. My running has taken me to the top of Pikes Peak, to the trails of Boise's Bogus Basin, and far beyond. I'm running more than ever and enjoying it like never before. So thank you, grief. Grief helped me get over my fear of flying. Now, Joe's death had the unfortunate timing of being close to when my younger son, Paul, was heading to California for college to join his older brother, Jake, who was already there as a grad student. I was going to have an empty nest, but not the one I envisioned a few years ago. I was staring down a big, empty house. No Joe, no kids, just me and the mice. Grief encouraged me to flip that scenario on its head, to use my new life as an opportunity to seek as much travel and adventure as possible. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to Spain, and to France, and to California to visit the kids more times than I can remember. Now, this is a big deal because this amount of travel involved a lot of planes, and I've been a fearful flyer my entire life. But if I was going to embrace this new lifestyle, I had to get over my fear of flying. Thank you, grief. Grief has also showed me how to honor somebody's memory in unique and meaningful ways. Working with the Urbana Park District, we buried Joe's remains at the base of a Majesty sugar maple tree planted near the large pavilion in Crystal Lake Park and installed a handsome and sturdy Memorial Joe bench near the tree. We also honored Joe by creating a memorial fund to benefit the local soccer club that both of our boys played in and that Joe coached in for years. Through the incredible generosity of family and friends, we were able to endow the Joe Fund, which now has almost $100,000 in it. Since Joe coached the youngest kids in the club, we now buy all the uniforms for the U9 boys and girls teams each fall. Joe's spirit is alive and well in Champaign-Urbana. Thank you, grief. Grief has taught me to lean on friends and to be open to new ones. I would not be surviving and standing here tonight without the endless love and support of my family and friends. But I've also been blessed in the time since Joe died to have some new friends come into my life. People who I believe were placed in my path at this time because I needed them to be. I like to think that Joe sent them. So Joe, thank you. Grief has made me want to bring happiness to others. I try harder to find joy in every day and not to complain or let dumb, petty things bother me. I get immense joy from bringing happiness to other people. As the co-race director of the 20,000 runner Christie Clinic Illinois Marathon, I'm the main person who handles calls and emails from thousands of entrants. If an entrant has a question or problem, I'm their girl. My real job title apparently, is the make people happy person. I love this job. When I make other people happy, it makes me happy too. So thank you, grief. Grief has taught me to be more patient and to have greater faith. Joe had the patience of Job. Remember, I did tell you he coached youth soccer. Since he died, I've found the faith to believe that whatever my future is, it will unfold exactly as it was meant to be, and to be at peace with that. Thank you, grief. And lastly, grief has taught me to live for the moment. Giving myself over to living for the moment frees me from the pain of Joe's illness and watching him die, little by little, in front of my eyes. Today is Saturday, and I'm going to do my best to live it fully. Tomorrow, Sunday, I'm going to do the same. I'm mindful of enjoying all the small moments in life. Be in the moment is my mantra. Thank you, grief. The grief I've endured from losing Joe has made me a kinder, better, more empathetic person, a more thoughtful person. I'm stronger and more resilient than I ever thought. I now know I can survive anything. I had these traits before Joe died. I just didn't know it the way I do now. Thank you, grief. Grief can make us bitter or better. I choose better. And so, I'll keep on living and cry when I need to and face fire every day and be a joyful and dedicated runner and seek even more travel and adventure and honor Joe's memory in unique ways and hold my family and friends dear and make people happy and be more patient and have more faith and live for the moment. Thank you, grief.
It is an honor to be interviewing you, Jan Impey. You are an amazing woman. Jan graduated from the University of Illinois with both her bachelor's and master's degrees in music education. She spent 40 years in the Chicago suburban area teaching music in public schools and also serving as a minister of music at a church. Jan, you have a joie de vivre, an exuberance for life that just exudes from you. And I know in your 87 years of life, you have many stories that you could share with us tonight, but we only have time for one. So tell us about the decision you made just after you retired when you were 69 years old.
Thank you, Karen. My decision was based on the fact that the 18 years before that time were a little tense. And I survived losing our home, a divorce, and cancer. But I was blessed with the fact that the Arlington Heights school system said, yes, you may come back and start teaching again at the age of 51. So I continued, and of course, as you just indicated, I retired, or I thought I did, but I did. I called my sons one day and I said, I'm telling you right now that I'm going to go on an adventure. I am leaving home. And they thought, I'm sure that they looked at me with a great deal of startled looks. But on the other hand, when I said I was leaving home, I was going to move to North Carolina. Now you understand, yes, 40 years in the suburbs, but my entire life living in the state of Illinois. That was a big deal. But they weren't that much surprised after a moment because they knew that there were many summers that I had spent in North Carolina near the Asheville area in which I attended conferences on worship and music, and indeed had some very warm friends that had moved into that area of the country. So they looked at me and they said, "Okay, Mom, go for it. If it doesn't work out, you can always come back."
Now, Jan, you used the word adventure. You told your boys you're going on an adventure. What is that?
Adventure is a word that my sister and I coined. It's taking a step that you don't really know where you are going, maybe a hint, but what's going to happen. Gulping twice and deciding, I want to try something new.
So what did you discover on your adventure in North Carolina?
13 absolutely wonderful years. I entered a community that was rich in all kinds of arts and creativity. I participated in that. And shortly thereafter, when I moved there, I was called upon and I became very definitely unretired. Because they said I was offered and asked to direct the community chorus. And I did for the next 10 years. Loved it. Doing all kinds of different kinds of music and that sort of thing with this wonderful group of about 80 or 90 singers that I had. I became enmeshed in the area's interests. I was on a board for the Fine Arts Center. I was asked to participate in other board activities. I volunteered at the library. I did things that were just things I would never have done had I remained in Arlington Heights. But one of the things, or maybe two, excuse me, let me put it that way. I have directed shows and choruses and concerts, but I decided to let myself go onto the other side of the footlights. So I went and auditioned for a role in My Fair Lady. And I was indeed given the role of Mrs. Higgins. And I had to do some sort of a British accent, like, over the wall. One of the wonderful things about that experience was that the director of our show was the woman who played the role of Eliza in the London performances of My Fair Lady for 2 years. And our Rex Harrison wore the sweater that Rex Harrison wore for Doolittle. I'm having a senior moment, forget it. But the other thing that absolutely got me was the time that I auditioned for Daisy in Driving Miss Daisy. And I was told I couldn't perform because I insisted I was not giving up the rehearsal nights of my choir. So that was the night that I was supposed to be on deck. It turned out that they did indeed come back and ask me to take the role, and I had 3 weeks to prepare for it. It was incredible. In fact, I'm digressing for just a moment, forgive me. Did you see the performance of senior moment? Jessica, on PBS not too long ago, in which Driving Miss Daisy was indeed performed. And I sat there right along with her and remembered every single word that I had ever learned. Incredible experience.
So, Jan, tell me about what you're wearing tonight.
Thank you. I got to know the culture of the South. It's so entirely different than what I experienced in any part of the state of Illinois. But one of the things that came out to me was the need for a garment to wear when I directed the community chorus. When you direct a church choir, it's wonderful. You can wear a robe, and it covers a multitude of sins, as you can well guess. I went into the Folk Art Center on the Blue Ridge Parkway and was looking for actually another gift when I turned the corner and I saw this long vest. And I thought, that's what I want. I purchased it, and I did indeed direct that concert with this on. Henceforth, I came to know the wonderful woman that made this vest, a lovely mountain woman in her mountain cabin, sewing pieces and fabrics of fabric that she had, putting it together into these designs of these vests. It was an incredible experience. I loved it. And she has made me 5 other vests that I own.
Well, you talk about the mountains. Did you get an opportunity to explore the mountains?
Oh, yes. We had a hiking group that went at least twice a year into the mountains to hike. But I ran into a little bump in the road. Thank you, Jan Simmons, for that note. But anyway, I had bilateral hip replacement, so I was stopped for a while. A year later, I was back on the Appalachian Trail and in the Smoky Mountains hiking with my group. So I loved it.
Jan, it sounds like you had a wonderful time on your ad adventure. So why did you move back to Illinois?
I was in my 80s, and it was time for me to activate the decision I had made earlier. And that was to give my sons the greatest gift at this stage of my life that I could possibly do. And that was to be accepted as a resident in a retirement community. You think it's fun being old? No, that's not it. Things were changing in North Carolina, and I did have a retirement community that was just a half a mile from where I lived. But I wanted to be in a university community, and particularly my university. And I knew of Clark Lindsay. And so I presented myself and asked if they would allow me to become a resident of that community. I was granted that privilege, and I'm on the next of my ad adventures.
How did you know about Clark Lindsay?
My mother was its second resident, and we bought her apartment from the construction trailer that was sitting catty-corner on the corner of Race and Windsor roads. Not one hole had been dug in the ground. I have watched that incredible community grow, and I'm so happy to be a part of it because it is now my home. And I have a very, very wonderful way to live very independently.
Jan, I know recently this summer you went on another ad adventure. What did you do?
Yes, I did. For many summers, I have driven to Cooperstown, New York, where my sister lives, and we have enjoyed a lot of time there and on Cape Cod. But this summer, I was having all kinds of negative response from family, friends, and whoever had it. You are not driving to New York. I said, oh, yes, I am. And so with that, no, you fly. In fact, my sister said, I don't want you to drive. And I said, sorry, I am driving. How do I get all my presents for Christmas and birthdays and all that sort of stuff out there if I can't do that? Henceforth, I did. I did drive all by myself, which I usually do, to Cooperstown and then to Cape Cod, and then extended the trip back down to North Carolina this summer to visit my dear friends who are undergoing some health issues, and then came home. And I put 2,413 miles on my car this morning, and here I am.
So, Jan, what will your next adventure be?
I don't know. I hinted that I'm living one. I have been asked, did you know anybody when you moved to Clark Lindsay? I said, no. Was that necessary? I have many, many friends there, and in those friends are people of the most incredible backgrounds. And for every day, finding something new that is absolutely exciting and wonderful to have shared from residents that are there. Of course, I can still be out in the community. I get myself over to Cranard and a few other places as far as that's concerned, and I'm a great Illini fan, you understand that. As long as I keep my eyes and ears open, you know, I don't like negativeness. I really don't. It's a loss of energy to dwell on things that are negative. So if I just keep my eyes and ears open, everything wonderful, well, maybe not always, but something will really come that is marvelous. When I was a youngster, somebody gave me a little bracelet on which there was a mustard seed. And with that were the words, if you have the faith of a grain of mustard, nothing will be impossible unto you. I'm on an adventure, my dear, and I love it.
Jan, thank you for sharing all your adventures with us, and I hope that when I grow up, I am like you.
Keep moving, keep moving.
Welcome to That's What She Said. Hi.
Wow. Thanks for finally coming.
That's what she said.
Seriously?
Oh, you walked into that one.
Sorry. Seriously?
Seriously. So, sorry I'm late. Oh my God. Thank you so much, everyone, for not starting the show and waiting for me. I knew you couldn't do it without me.
Yep, you betcha. You're welcome. Well, you pull yourself together there. We're going to go ahead and start the show.
Yeah, let's do it. Yay.
Yeah. Please join me in welcoming Christie Clinic's own Dr. Candace McGregor.
Hi.
Thank you.
People often ask me about my decision to go into OBGYN, and I start by telling them that I told my mom when I was 11 I was going to catch babies when I grew up. And I still love catching those babies. The process of pregnancy and childbirth, they still fascinate me. The power and the strength and the endurance that a woman's body displays during that time still puts me in awe. 25 plus years later, I still love catching those babies. But as I have matured, so too has my appreciation for the field. I found a way to work with women for women. Now, I may not have been that woman out in the streets burning her bra 40 years ago, but maybe. But I do feel passionate about serving women and raising awareness for issues that affect women. My job lets me do that every day and in my routine. But it also allowed me to step outside my normal world and into a little village called Kapsawar, Kenya. After 2 8-hour plane rides and then an 8-hour off-roading Jeep adventure, my family of 4 found ourselves in this remote village of Kapsawar. And for a couple weeks, I was able to volunteer my services as an OBGYN in a little missionary hospital. Most of the experiences were wonderful. I did get to catch some babies. I got to save a baby's life by doing an emergency cesarean section. And I even got to help participate in surgically creating a vagina for a young adolescent girl born without one. Not all of the experiences were so wonderful. Almost every woman that I spoke with there shared a story with me of how she lost a full-term pregnancy to stillbirth, or she lost a newborn in those first few weeks of life. It was an everyday occurrence there, and here it just doesn't happen that often. One of the worst moments of my trip there occurred as I had just stepped out the back door of the hospital to sit on the steps and enjoy some of the views for a few moments of rest between patients. But what I saw was a little rusty white truck backing up into the entrance of the hospital. In the back of the truck lay a woman limp on a makeshift mattress, surrounded by her family who were sobbing. As the interpreter rapidly translated their Swahili into the English that I could understand, I learned that the bottom half of her baby had been dangling from her, trapped inside of her for the last 3 hours. To make matters worse, for the last 2 hours, over 60 unpaved miles of traveling ordeal, she had been having brain-injuring seizures. Now, that just wouldn't happen here. All she needed was magnesium. An IV infusion of magnesium would have stopped her seizures cold. They would have saved her brain. A C-section, born when we figured out this baby was breech, would have saved her baby's life. She could have walked home with a baby. Now, we were able to save this woman. She won't ever be the same, physically or emotionally, but we lost her baby that day. The women over there, they don't really need our money. They don't need our super technology. They rarely even need medical supplies. But what they need is us. They need people who are willing to give up our creature comforts and our somewhat lavish lifestyles, even if it's just temporarily, to go over there and to help. They need our skills and our knowledge. They need us. Now, the flip side of that coin is that we often reap rewards that vastly outweigh theirs. Medicine was so pure. It was joyful. It was simple there. Here, I'll admit, it gets a bit tarnished. Whether it's insurance companies, governmental regulations, paperwork, the malpractice system, here it's complicated, and there it's just simple. You walk into the hospital, you face the first patient of the day, and you just do good. It was joyful. Also, my kids got to experience a whole new world. They got to see and hear and taste things that they would never get the opportunity to do here. We were welcomed into a beautiful land by a beautiful people. And They got to watch their mom live out her faith, because that's a big reason why we were there. You see, spirituality to me is not just about keeping a list of do's and don'ts, keeping a tally of rights and wrongs, but it's about allowing my faith to change me, to make me a better person, and to serve and show love to others, because I have been loved and blessed with so much. Now, I'd like to take 1 minute here and think about you ladies, and maybe a couple gentlemen in the audience here, and what skills you have, what knowledge you possess, what passion lies inside you, and see how you could use those to serve others. You see, you might not be over there halfway around the world, because we know there are women right here in need who are suffering. You may not be catching babies. You may not be surgically creating vaginas. But if just a few of us today would hear some of these stories and would have a renewed sense of purpose, then we could create a tidal wave of good instead of the tidal wave of negative we hear on the news every day. Thank you so much for coming, of letting me share my story of Capsuar, and of sharing my passion with you.
I was sitting back there in my chair thinking about a quote that Kerry shared with me. She told me, "Don't judge your insides by other people's outsides." It's a great quote, but what I got distracted by was the fact that Kerry's son is only 4 years younger than me. Hey, Kerry, I could be your daughter-in-law one day. I know what people see when they look at my outsides in the non-creepiest of ways. They see a sorority girl at the university. They see a girl who has a job at Fiera Boutique that she loves, a family that supports her, and a nannying family that she absolutely adores. But all of those things that they see don't make me exempt from life's challenges or stressors. This summer, I was sitting in my apartment when I had my first panic attack. I didn't know what was happening, and I felt like I was in a Ziploc bag that was being sealed closed. I was shaky, I was clammy, and I didn't really know what was going on. I thought it might be a one-time thing, but it wasn't. It happened again and again. In the last 6 weeks, I've had 9 panic attacks. I don't know when they're gonna happen, but what I do know is this isn't how I pictured my junior year of college. But I'm also not one to let the unknown scare me. And that's exactly what my insides are right now, unknown. Even if my outsides look like the same familiar Lexi. The doctors and I have been working together trying to figure out if it's physical or if it's psychological. But again, we don't know. But what I do know is that I'm not going to let this stop me or from anything that I want to do. And I'm not going to. I'm a runner and a fighter, and I got that from my mama. On September 27th, I finished another half marathon. My mom was there for me. My mom was there for me, freaking out the entire time I was running and texting me, like, I'm kind of busy, Mom. But when I saw my mom at the finish line, ecstatic that I made it, even though it was not my first half marathon, I realized something. I realized that running is a good analogy for my life. Instead of running away from everything that life has been throwing at me, I'm running towards it. I'm running towards my sorority sisters, my family, my school, my work. And my favorite possibility of them all is my opportunity to call Kerry Mom.
What's up, y'all? When I first started writing this piece, I knew that I owed my story to other women. I knew that I wanted to honor the women who had brought me to my greatest potential. In the past 2 to 3 years alone, I've met so many brilliant, beautiful ladies that I call my sisters, my sheroes, my best friend, and that was impossible to do in 5 minutes. So I had to narrow it down, and I decided to talk about motherhood. And I thought the best way to express who I am and what I'm made of is through rhythm and rhyme. January 22nd, 2015, I lost the very thing I worked my hardest to redeem. She worked harder through her pain and hardest through complaint. Family non-compliant, not a dollar to the name. Now that's the power of the game. The guilt ain't ours. The world is green with weeds and greed and wilted flowers. I feel so powerless. Like, Grandma, why you leaving without us? And damn it, I just need you to notice that soon enough I'll make you the proudest. I tried to make the most of our moments, the most important component. Hope my life is a poet, will pour some faith in the poorest. Hope my vice is proportion to sacrifices and fortune. I've been coping with death ever since the day I was born. I've been holding my breath since they diagnosed her with cancer. I've been scolding myself for not having none of the answers. I've been showing myself that I'm better now than I have been. I've been coaching myself through some words of wisdom with Jasmine, cause she know the emotion. She lost a piece of her passion. You can feel the explosion. That shit be deep in the back of your heart, and it'll creep through your mouth if you let it. Family I knew for 20 years acted ugly as ever, but that's nature. Thank you. My grandma, Becky, was my favorite grandma. Let's put it out there like that. We all have one. And God, losing her is, it's not, I kind of have to be a little distant from this piece a little bit so I don't get emotional, because that's how, she's another me, just a lot older. So, man, she was everything, back-breaking, country cooking, good looking. And she was still pretty young when she passed. And it was only really like a month, maybe 2 months between the time she was diagnosed until the time she left us. That was really, really, really hard. That's not something I expected this year. But what was really fascinating about this story for me is that a couple months prior, my mom was released from prison. She had served a couple terms before. And this time she got released early for good behavior. And she comes home, everything gets reacquainted. And then we find out that my grandma's sick. And so in that last couple of months, my mom really had an opportunity to nurture my grandma and rebuild a relationship with her that had been really rocky up to that point. And so through all of that grief and hardship, there really was a silver lining. And I don't think that my mom would have fully recovered if she wouldn't have been able to be there for my grandma. So I have a just entirely new respect for my mom. I could not imagine going through something like that. So I've made it my duty to protect her and love her so that I don't lose her as prematurely as we lost my grandma. So it brings me to my second piece. Thank you. April 29th, 1997. Mama lost a newborn, baby brought to full term. He came out her womb wrong, ashamed of her wounds. Too young, his lungs too weak to pull from. Not 2 weeks, but 2 days. Not 2 weeks, but 2 days. That's not normal, she nocturnal, he blue-faced. It was supposed to be his due date. We're that mortal, but that pain created that portal to crack cocaine. And back then, I ain't see it. Back then, I ain't see it, I ain't care, I just needed it. Stepmom's response was so immediate, mean, but she meant well. I learned obedience. I learned more from neglect and deviance, but I also learned that regret ain't what freedom is. It took 25 years to learn some sense of self-respect and leadership. Written letters, calls collect. Diligent, distant relatives tell bars connect. God is the archetype, architect. Only he could bring light to something as dark as that. We both survived a hard relapse. We both realized the hardest past can break you, got a heart of glass. We both alive in hard behalf. The pain of being motherless, it's harsh, but it's hard to grasp. But you heal and you overcome. So all I ask is every time I rhyme, you feel where I'm coming from and what's in my nature. Yeah, my mom, she is my hero. Through everything, through this struggle, this has been a lifelong struggle. Substance abuse is a disease, and I've come to realize that. And it's something that, every day you really have to put a lot of energy into being the person that you want to be. And just the relationship with my mom and the relationship with my grandma has just taught me to be a giving person and a forgiving person, because that's really what love is. You have to extend that to other people. And the type of person you are extends outwards, and you allow people to be a better person the better that you are. So it has really taught me to be a better example. And in the past year alone, after losing my grandma, you know, I didn't know what was happening. I'm a musician, I do music and stuff, but this year has been incredible. I've been able to go across the country and perform. I've been presented with so many opportunities. So many beautiful people have come into my life. This has come into my life, and I can only think that my grandma is in heaven really clearing a path for me. So, thank you. Love you, Grandma. And through it all, I've learned that motherhood is magical. And as daughters and as mothers, please be very conscious of the messages that you send and cherish the time that you spend together. Set an example for each other, set expectations for each other, and love each other endlessly. Because like nature, everything comes full circle. Thank you.
Carol Burnett said that comedy is tragedy plus time. I'm here to tell you a story tonight that has taken me 16 years to process. It's a story about pain, regret, and innocence lost. It's the story of my first and only professional Brazilian bikini wax. When you are that pregnant, all the blood has rushed to either your crotch or your cankles. You just cannot be trusted to make a good decision. And what can I say? I'm a people pleaser. I just wanted it to make it easier for my doctor to see what was shooting out of the old lady luge. It's me. Now, in my defense, I am a hairy woman. When I put on a bathing suit and go to the pool, people hang their snacks in bear bags. That's true. Listen, you think I'm exaggerating? The only reason this dress is so poofy is because I forgot to pack a razor. Guys, I found a hair growing out of my shoulder the other day. Either my eyebrows are migrating south for the winter, or my bikini area is now officially the diameter of a tractor tire. Actually, the worst part of that scenario is that I'm getting a little farsighted in my middle age, so I couldn't see it to pluck it myself. I had to ask my husband to pluck my shoulder hair. Sexy. Yeah. I haven't always been such a babe, I'll have you know. Back then, I was so big, people would stop me on the street and ask me when my twins were due. And that was just in my first trimester. By the time that sucker was fully cooked, I looked like the Hindenburg. I mean, I was the woman who was knocking over pyramids of cans in the grocery store. So I clearly had bigger problems than maintaining my lady garden. I mean, the fact that I was worried about making a good impression with my lady bits, that should tell you that I had absolutely no idea about the mechanics of giving birth. Are there any pregnant women in the audience tonight? Anyone? Ladies, I've had 3 children, and I'm here to tell you, nobody cares about your foundation shrubbery when your septic tank is exploding all over the backyard. Yeah. Take that to the bank. Now, in hindsight, wink, yeah, I kind of wish I had spent less time on the hoo-ha hairdo and more time not eating the Italian sausage and peppers. But I'm not here to tell you any childbirth horror stories. I'm here to tell you about Tiffany. Tiffany, the perky college girl who was assigned to me at the Shiny Hiney Salon and Spa. Tiffany, the sweet young thing I paid cash money to transform my baby cannon into an angry, obese version of Dr. Evil's hairless cat. Tiffany greeted me in the waiting room. She was wearing a sorority t-shirt and jeans. She had her hair in one of those high ponytails like Pebbles from the Flintstones. Yeah, yabba dabba don't. She took one look at me and said, "Oh my God, you are like so totally pregnant." I waddled behind her to the private room, and she instructed me to disrobe from the waist down and lie back on the table while she was stirring the wax and making very nervous chit-chat. "So, are you excited? Is this your first? My dog had puppies once. It was like totally gross." Then she turned around and got a look at the task at hand. Let me tell you, the nervous chit-chat came to a screeching halt. Tiffany hunkered down and got to work. She told me I needed to pull my ankles as close to my crotch as I could. Sorry about that. Yeah. If you can envision a sweaty 200-pound turkey being butterflied, it's okay. I actually don't remember most of it. I think I blocked it out. But I do succinctly remember Tiffany asking me to roll over and get on all fours. Apparently, my belly was casting a shadow. She couldn't see. It took me a while to get like this. It was quiet. And then I think I heard a sob. "Tiffany, are you okay back there? Tiffany, are you crying, sweetie?" Apparently, Tiffany's training hadn't adequately prepared her for the many wonders of advanced pregnancy. Let's just say if Preparation H were part of the Box Tops for Education program, my kid's school would have earned a Jumbotron that year. I still think about Tiffany from time to time. I wonder, how's she doing? Did she finish college? Is she still in therapy? Did she elect voluntary sterilization? Poor thing, having to apply hot wax to my salad shooter. Actually, I think it was a good experience because it gave me some insight into how nurturing I would be as a mother. Shh, 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 shh. It's okay, sweetie. You're gonna get through this. Tiffany, you get back here and finish what you've started, young lady. Actually, now that I've been a mom for 16 years, the momentary humiliation of a pregnant bikini wax is a walk in the park. Yes? Yes. Thank you. Compared to the daily struggles of motherhood, I honestly would rather drop trow any day and make a stranger cry with my vagina than have to practice driving with my 16-year-old son. Come on, right? That shit is scary. Life goes on. What was once humiliating can become humor with enough time. Our perspectives and priorities change. I don't pay for bikini waxes anymore. They charge by the square footage and I can't afford it. It's okay. Honestly, I'm more comfortable in my own skin today than I was in my 20s or 30s. And I've got the silky smooth shoulders to prove it. Thank you. Thank you so much.